Hi, everyone. My name is Randy Morse. I'm the communications director of AromaLoc, which is a Canadian company based in the province of British Columbia in the heart of wine country. That's right. For those of you watching or listening to this, you may be surprised to hear that there is wine country in Canada. We're in British Columbia, but I can assure you there is. And our region of British Columbia in particular produces some absolutely world-beating wines. On that note, I'm pleased to be joined by Mark Hopley, who is the head winemaker at Hester Creek Winery, which is located in what is referred to as the Golden Mile Bench, just outside of the lovely town of Oliver in the South Okanagan Valley. 115-acre property. Mark and his team produce 28 different wine products, many of them award winning. Mark himself is, like Hester Creek, an Okanagan product. Born and raised in the Okanagan, studied winemaking and viticulture at Okanagan College, and has worked at various wineries in British Columbia, including Sumac Ridge, Crazy Legs, Road 13, and joined the Hester Creek team in 2013. The reason I have Mark on the line today is because he and his team at Hester Creek have for some time now been using AromaLoc, and I'm looking forward to talking with Mark about his experience with our technology. Mark, thanks for joining me today.
Randy, my pleasure. Thanks for having a chat. I appreciate it.
Let's get right down to it, Mark. First of all, just give our listeners and viewers a quick overview of Hester Creek. What is it that makes Hester Creek special?
Well, I think, the sense of place. We're on the Golden Mile Bench, as you alluded to, so kind of in the heart of the South Okanagan. We have a lot of Bordeaux varietals. On the same property, Randy, we do Bordeaux, Burgundy, and Rhone, which I think
Mm.
is quite unusual. But it is a big property with a lot of slope. We're above the valley bottom here, so it is a beautiful place to make wine. And fortunate enough to have a lot of older vines on the property. It was originally planted in 1968 by Joe Bisnardo. So it's not a hard place to make great wines, to be quite honest. It's the fruit, it's farming. The quality of the grapes are incredible. And the facility that we have is cutting edge with state-of-the-art fermenters and a product that we're about to talk about right now that I'm pretty excited about.
Okay, thanks for that, Mark. So let's talk about your experience using AromaLoc. As I understand it, your use has been not just practical. Obviously, your goal is to continue to produce increasingly great wines, right? Having said that, as I understand it, your use of AromaLoc is being sort of research oriented,
Yeah,
including daily tastings of AromaLoc treated wines during fermentation. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, we had talked with the inventor of the product, Dick Jones, and we've done some research with Dick. I would tell you that the first time we used it was, I believe it was 2022, and basically on a trial basis, just tried it, and because the sales rep said, "Look, just try it, see if you like it," and so that's what we did. And so we took Pinot Gris. It was Pinot Gris the first year, and we had the exact same fruit from the exact same vineyard, same yeast, fermented at the same temperature, one with AromaLoc, one without. And it would tell you that from the get-go, the aromatics in the AromaLoc tank were heads and tails, but it was more than the aromatics, Randy. So for me, it's that upfront fruit, that perception of sweet fruit that you get on the nose and on the palate that was really, really lifted. So, we watched it all the way through ferment. They finished about the same time. Unfortunately, the two wines got blended together in this particular case because, we're making a larger skew. But I would tell
Sure.
you the AromaLoc tank was heads and tails above the one beside it with the exact same yeast without the AromaLoc. Same feed, same nutrient. So it was the start of a journey, at least I believe here at Hester Creek, that I'm glad we took, embracing that technology, like those aromatics being separated from the CO2. is a game changer. It really is.
It really does make a huge difference, doesn't it? I know that you and I were speaking before we started recording this session, and I mentioned to you that our technology is now, like Hester Creek, award winning. In 2022, we won the Winnovation Award as an industry leader down in Napa Valley. And just recently, we won a similar award in Bordeaux in France. And I understand that you're soon off to, lucky you, Italy to attend the CIME conference in Milan. And as you know, we're up for a similar Italian award at that show. I hope you're able to be there and stand up when the award is given to AromaLoc and shout out to the Italians in attendance. We were there first at Hester Creek in British Columbia, Canada.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm excited for that, and congratulations, well deserved. Quick story for you. We
Please.
used Okay, so we made a rosé out of Pinot Noir for the first time in 2023, and it was one of the first wines that we used this AromaLoc technology, and it won Canadian Rosé of the Year at the All Canadian Wine Championships. So it's like, awards are amazing. They are a testament to what you're doing, but I will tell you now that we've got 3 of these units, we've got a lot more tanks as we move them around during fermentation that taste that good. And for me, that's super exciting.
I love to hear that, obviously. And what you just said there at the end of your comment is I think something worth emphasizing to any winemakers that might be listening or watching this right now, Mark. And that is the fact that at least the current unit that you've got, which we back in the early days referred to as the 3500, is easily moved from tank to tank, right? So those winemakers who've got more than one batch, if you will, going on, depending on the timing, obviously, of fermentation, can literally use that unit multiple times during a harvest season, right?
Well, I would guess that we put the 3 AromaLocs that we have on likely 20 different tanks this year. So, obviously all the varieties don't ripen at the same time. So early on, you might have it on a Pinot Gris tank, but as we get into Viogniers and Rieslings and Rosés, we've kind of bumped those down the line. The technology in my brain, it's simple. And that's like simple is like you're literally keeping the aromatics in the wine. And the game changer for us, Randy, was when Dick had mentioned to me, I thought at first it was just we could use it on a smaller tank with that model, like a 5,000 liter tank. But we've learned since that that is not necessarily the case. It's temperature dependent. So I like fermenting cool. So a lot of our tanks are between 12 and 14 C. So at 12 to 14 C, it's a game changer on the volume that you can do. And that has really changed the playing field for us.
That's a great point, Mark. So on that note, what's the largest tank size that you've used the AromaLoc machines on so far?
On a 19,000 liter tank that had about 16,800 liters of Pinot Gris in it. So, and Viognier too. We did a Viognier tank about the same size. So we've used it up to say 17,000 liter tanks, fermenting at 14 Celsius with no issues whatsoever, and only positives for the wine in the end.
Wow.
And it's timing too. That's one thing that I didn't understand when I first started this journey is when to use this machine, when to use this tool. You want it needs CO2 to do its thing. So you don't want to put it on too early. You want to wait till you're through that lag phase of ferment and you start chewing through the first couple of bricks of sugar when those aromatics are really starting to pop. That's when they're starting to leave the tank. So that's when you turn it on, you keep them in the tank. And as the wine approaches dryness and you get around 0 bricks, take it off and then put it on another tank. So that's what we've been doing this harvest. And I can't wait to use more of them moving forward.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. That's a hugely important note to any winemakers out there using AromaLoc. When to turn it on, when to turn it off. When you're approaching that +1 to 0 bricks, shut it down and move it to another tank if you can. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. And that it needs the CO2. Dick was explaining to me that it needs that CO2, which makes a lot of sense. So if you're separating it, if there's not enough CO2 being produced, put it on another tank because you're only going to reap the rewards.
Exactly. Well, Mark, to conclude this conversation, if you were standing in front of some fellow winemakers who'd never heard of AromaLoc before, what would you say to them?
I would say, how do you smell wine? How do you judge a wine? So when you have it in your glass and you swirl the glass, those aromatics are volatile. So they're coming out of suspension. You're taking in the essence of that wine. Think of a tank. Well, it's a million times more than that, the volume. It's more enhanced. It's more obvious. Think about those aromatics that are volatile and that are leaving your tank every day during ferment. Think about, well, what if we could keep those in? So the pump separating the CO2. So the CO2 actually leaves the tank. That's one thing I haven't mentioned is these tanks are actually sealed. So I know it sounds odd from a winemaking perspective, but as those tanks are sealed, the CO2 gets pumped out, but the aromatics stay in. Imagine if you could do that to a whole tank, and imagine when that wine is in your glass with a finished product, how much more, powerful those aromatics can be. And I think that's my takeaway. And it's not just on the nose. I will tell you, it's also on the palate up front. The total game changer for us. And I would say, get a few units, just try them. And once you try them, I guarantee you, you'll probably want more units because that's the way we've been going. And aromatics, you can't overdo aromatics in white wines and rosés, in my mind. Reds maybe a little different, but for the whites and for the rosés, it's really been a game changer in our program.
Well, thanks a lot for that, Mark. I've been having a conversation with Mark Hopley, who is the head winemaker at Hester Creek Winery on the Golden Mile Bench outside of Oliver, British Columbia. If any of you happen to be in the vicinity, absolutely make a point of visiting Hester Creek. It's a absolutely stunningly beautiful facility. I know, Mark, you have a lovely tasting room and a beautiful Italian-centric restaurant. Our friends at
Sure.
Juclas, our global partners, will be delighted to hear that.
Yeah,
And
terrific.
I can't wait to get out there myself and sample some of those award-winning wines. Mark, starting with that rosé, I hope you still have a bottle or two left of that.
Well, they're hard to come by, but we'll dig one up.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Mark.
Thanks, Randy. Appreciate
Take
it.
care.